Hakairi Kinji, first introduced to us as a rash person with a temper enough to get him expelled. Hakairi joined the Allies soon enough because of his passionate self. And well, you know, a little romance with Itadori involving some freaking painful punches that definitely sealed the deal. Hakairi has more than proved to live up to his name as the strongest sorcerer, second to none other than Satoru freaking Gojo. I mean, have you come across such a long ass curse technique explanation for anybody else other than his sensei Gojo? This had the whole community like... We know everyone's mind has melted trying to understand Hakairi's powers, especially his ability to spam domain expansion. But that's why we're here. Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go balls deep into Jujutsu Kaisen, something that Akutami seems to have taken literally with Hakairi's fightgasm. Remember that shit? My man's busting a nut cause he's fighting good opponents. Today we are going to break down Hakairi's domain expansion, Idle Death Gamble, which seems to make him totally invincible. He is part of Satoru Gojo's goal to reform Jujutsu Society for the better, and his powers are very important to make that dream come true. So it comes to no surprise that Hakairi is a juggernaut when it comes to curse energy and his technique. His strength has been foreshadowed right from the get-go in chapter 11 itself, when Satoru freaking Gojo himself attested Hakairi had a bright future. Well, only when we're talking about his powers though, because this dude does have a gambling addiction at the end of the day, and he's running an illegal fight club. Is Gojo's mind right? Oh, it isn't. I'm sorry, Gojo, I'm sorry. We don't kill me. But Gojo, your testimony proves quite true when we finally meet Hakairi in chapter 157. If Hakairi landed a barrage of punches on Itadori wasn't enough, Itadori also noticed something odd with it. Every punch from Hakairi hurt Itadori badly, irrespective of how much or how little strength he put into them. Itadori felt like instead of punches, it was like Hakairi was hitting him with a baseball bat that had a saw-like edge. And it didn't take Hakairi too long to let that cat out of the bag, cause the secret was with his curse energy. According to Satoru Gojo, Hakairi's energy had an edge that was making his punches seem extremely harsh. This was the first time Jujutsu Kaisen introduced a special feature of a character's curse energy, so it was quite a surprise. This was labeled as a new concept called curse energy traits in the recent chapters, with Hakairi facing Kashimo, who has a unique curse energy trait of electricity. Although this concept is fairly new, we can conclude from their clash that curse energy gives an edge to the sorcerer. It is an extra layer of firepower to a physical attack covered with curse energy that just cannot be avoided. In Hakairi's case, even if Itadori had managed to take on the curse energy, he couldn't have done shit about the feeling of being hit with a bat having a rough edge. On top of that, Hakairi was holding back against Itadori because he scales even higher. When we move forward in the manga, even Bernard wondered how Hakairi's curse energy felt rough and hurt him like sandpaper. This fact definitely makes Hakairi much stronger in one-on-one battles than we had previously imagined. He's certainly quite adept in hand-to-hand combat and is also very agile. Hakairi's entire fight against Bernard, the manga artist, was proof of how he is excellent when it comes to physical capabilities. Look guys, for one, Hakairi, he didn't even have to take his hands out of his pockets until it was absolutely necessary. He basically flexed on Bernard and told him who's boss, saying, "I'm dripped out in this shit, bitch." He almost dealt a powerful front kick to Bernard's head and only missed because of Bernard's OP curse technique. Bernard noted Hakairi's perception of battle in chapter 182 when Hakairi jumped far away from him and said it was more than just a reflex, telling us that Hakairi has honed his skills in actual battle, as he was even involved in the fight of Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 0 and that entire story. That day didn't end up well for the conservative higher-ups, whom Hakairi beat up in a disagreement. And we all know the people who have pressed the bell icon the channel and they are not silly willies, they have watched our previous video explaining the entire story of the prequel of Jujutsu Kaisen from this video. So don't be shy, go ahead and press the bell icon and smash the like button. This is you without the bell icon. And this is you when it's smashed. Coming back to Hakari, despite Bernard having an insane technique of seeing a few seconds into the future, just like the bottom left panel of a manga as he explains, Hakari managed to defeat him. Bernard's character is literally Rohan and Diavolo crossover, you know what I'm saying? The JoJo references in Jujutsu Kaisen are getting way too real. However, it didn't take Hakari too long to find a way out of Bernard's ability to look into the future, and that was to attack from his blind spots. To do this, Hakari moved around Bernard swiftly enough that he lost sight of him and took a massive punch to the stomach from him. It's clear that Hakari is capable of dealing serious damage to anyone, even someone as tough as Itadori when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, who was described to be a demon in his own right not too long ago by Choso. Moreover, Hakari is definitely in the race for joining, if not going above, the League of Special Grade Sorcerers with the way he's been fighting with his domain expansion against Kishimo. Hakari's domain expansion is absolutely astonishing because it quite simply makes him near invincible. The reveal of his domain expansion made it clear that Yuta's statement in chapter 146 about Hakari, it was completely true. This guy's built different. We can see why Yuta thinks Hakari is stronger amongst the two of them when he is absolutely worked up. This is bearing in mind that Satoru Gojo is scouting out students that can live up to his ideals of power, as he fundamentally does believe that power is required to change society. But what really in his domain expansion makes him so strong? Hakari's domain expansion is called Idle Death Gamble or Restless Gambler and is based upon the pachinko system. Now you may be wondering, ABD, what the hell is a pachinko? Did you just make up this word? No, I didn't. A thing to keep in mind about it is that every step of his domain is based on probability, and even Hakari has no clue if he will hit a jackpot or not. The guaranteed hit in this domain expansion is harmless, unlike other domains, for example Jogo's Coffin of the Iron Mountain, but it is perhaps even more effective than most domains out there. Firstly, because it divulges all the rules and mechanisms to the enemy right upon entry, and we already know that in Jujutsu Kaisen the explanations of curse techniques only make the attacks more powerful. The same case is with Idle Death Gamble. To understand it, you first need to know about pachinko. It refers to a slot machine that shoots tiny silver balls at a very fast pace. The aim of this game is to hit jackpots in a limited time by either managing to get the ball in the jackpot area and or winning mini games. Just like the usual pachinko machine, Hakari's domain also has a theme, which is CR Private Pure Love Train, a shoujo romance manga with 7 characters all representing 7 numbers. The end goal of Hakari is also to hit a jackpot by getting 3 of the same character, much like a lottery machine. This jackpot gives 2 absolutely broken advantages to Hakari. Number 1, his body is replenished with any curse energy lost before and during the round. More importantly, for the next 4 minutes and 11 seconds, his body flows with infinite curse energy to the point that he doesn't even feel a tinge of Kishimo's attack laced with electricity in chapter 186, despite it being an unavoidable effect. And we all know how dangerous this attack is. Remember Panda? Well, he's no more. So as shown in chapter 186 and 188, he can also subconsciously use reverse curse technique, even though he never learnt how to do so. It can fully heal him, even fatal wounds like losing an arm, losing half his face, and even a freaking hole in his stomach. Running on automatic reverse curse technique also allows him to nullify toxic gases and poison, like in chapter 189, something that is usually a very difficult task for somebody using reverse curse technique consciously. So it's automatically happening for him, which is a great benefit during a fight. So number 2, every time Hakari hits a jackpot, either the probability of him hitting another jackpot in the next round increases, or the domain allows him for faster spins. For example, a time reduction mode in the round. It's clear that the outcome of Hakari's domain expansion is just freaking insane. What's more is that as long as he keeps hitting jackpots, he can continue casting his domain as long as he wants to, even in the same fight, like literally an infinite amount of times. This is, I'm gonna say, this is straight up a monster ability and completely busted, because most sorcerers like Megami can only cast their domains once or twice in a day, because it takes a massive toll on their curse energy. But Hakari, his curse energy is replenished and it allows him to spam domains left and right. Look at this fight alone, he's already surpassed everyone's expectations. Now, to arrive at a jackpot, Hakari begins with the starting scenario where he can use two kinds of visual indicators, balls or doors, that also have 3 colors to them. In the order of increasing chances to hit a jackpot, these colors are green, red and gold. Hakari can choose any effect, and if he can use them thrice, he may get a jackpot because of the success of his attacks is all up to luck. However, if he is able to use an effect for the 4th time, or a rainbow colored ball or a door, it guarantees him a jackpot. It's kind of like a player having bad luck to the point that the game dishes out a pity pull, which is a guaranteed success on the next pull or roll. When Hakari uses these indicators once or more, a Riichi scenario begins. Riichi, also called Reach, is a concept from Mahjong. A Reach is not too different from when we say Uno, when only one card remains during a game of Uno. Similarly, if Hakari gets 2 of the same characters, the domain starts a scenario. These scenarios are nothing but different situations like in games that give you a chance to pull a prize or a jackpot in Hakari's case. And since Hakari's domain is based on a romance manga, there are different levels of hype or excitement related to each scene. You can think of it as how much impact a scene can have on a plot. So a scene where the protagonist has to make it through the ticket gates to make it to work on time, that doesn't have major plot importance. Thus, this scene has 1 star or very low chances of hitting a jackpot for Hakari. These unfavorable conditions can also be mitigated by chance boosters that are like extra tools or items from a game. On the other hand, if the female lead decides to leave the last train to stay back with the male lead, that's a huge plot point. The hype of this scenario is enough that the chances to hit jackpot are now over 80%. And what if Hakari does not hit a jackpot? Well, then another round begins from the starting scene and loops until Hakari wins that jackpot. According to him, he has never gone past 30 rounds against any enemy, which is insane considering the actual probability to hit the jackpot is only 1 in 239. Moreover, he can also stack bonuses he wins in multiple rounds like tickets in an arcade to redeem the powers later on. This is probably what Hakari on a roll means, because as he gets jackpots, the chances to get more of them only increases every time. Like, what? This guy is busted.
Now what truly makes this domain dangerous is that Hakuri is literally unkillable during a round and after hitting jackpot. An enemy can only defend during the rounds and wait until the round is over before they can even think of attacking him, as Bernard said in chapter 183. You would think that the best time to attack Hakuri then is the split second when his immortality ends and when he's going to cast the domain. But Hakuri also has incredible speed that even surpassed Kashimo in chapter 188. In fact, according to chapter 187, Hakuri's curse technique activation is even stronger than Mahito in Shibuya. Just put that into perspective. This dude is literally comparable to a special grade cursed spirit that terrified everyone. And he can even cast a domain on the verge of death itself. Akutami woke up and chose violence whilst making Hakuri's character, for real. Now, if all of this wasn't enough, user Teppen Census on Tumblr and Alan JJK on the Jujutsu Sushi subreddit found out some interesting lore behind Hakuri's immortality with music being played. Hakuri's domain expansion hand sign is inspired by a goddess called Benzaiten from Japanese lore, also called Saraswati in Hindu mythology. Benzaiten is worshipped as the goddess of luck, making her very related to Hakuri's character as he depends on luck a hell of a lot. She's also worshipped for other domains such as wisdom and knowledge, but most importantly, she's often seen holding a biwa, which is a Japanese short-necked wooden instrument, because she is also the goddess of music. Furthermore, Benzaiten is also referred to as the female immortal, and there's a tale that says she exchanged a poem with Toriyoko, a man who is said to be an immortal too. This directly correlates to how Hakuri also becomes immortal when the goddess of luck exchanges music, in this case for a certain period of time. This explains why and how Hakuri's technique allows him to mix two polar concepts like immortality and music to have an insane power-up. Plus the fact that his curse technique has such divine references, we can say that Hakuri is one of a kind. In fact, he might also be on the way to being another enlightened person in Jujutsu Kaisen. The people who have dinged that notification bell know from this video that enlightenment is a very important concept in JJK, as only Sukuna and Gojo are enlightened ones. Even though we have all of this information, we still don't know enough about Hakuri's cursed technique itself. And honestly, at this point, Hakuri doesn't even need it because he can fight good enough with bare hands and spam domain expansions like it's the end of the world. The biggest takeaway from Hakuri's abilities is that even luck is a skill, and Hakuri has it, as he says in chapter 183. This makes Hakuri a formidable enemy and an extremely reliable ally. There's no surprise that he can be compared to some of the strongest sorcerers in the series, and looking at his monstrous abilities, there's no scope to wonder why Gojo said that Hakuri is a candidate to surpass him someday. In fact, Hakuri is also the very personification of Gojo's claim to Principal Gakukanji that the new generation won't be limited to special grade. Hakuri is giving a hell of a time to Kashimo, who's not just some pleb, but is actually a very strong opponent. He is a sorcerer from the past who is constantly in search of battles to satisfy him, much like Ryu Ishiguri. He also believes that he can go up against Sukuna, the king of curses himself, even though Kenjaku said Sukuna was the strongest. Despite this, Hakuri is simply going all out and is having fun with it, but we will discuss that in a little bit. It's more important to note that Hakuri uses domain expansion almost seamlessly, which makes him OP because it's the most powerful way to realize one's innate curse technique. So far, we literally could not see a single way to defeat Hakuri in a normal way. But what if he was to fight Sukuna? It is interesting that his constant automatic reverse curse technique reminds us of Mahoraga, who could also regenerate himself at a very high speed. Therefore, Sukuna used his domain on it. The logic behind this trick was that Sukuna wanted Mahoraga to sustain damage at a higher speed than it could regenerate itself. The same thing can happen with Hakuri. Kashimo has been pulling some excellent tricks to try damage Hakuri, but his drawback is not having a continuous attack. It doesn't seem like he's got a domain expansion either, since he was going to use Hollow Wicker Basket against Hakuri, which is an anti-domain technique like Simple Domain. Even if it wouldn't have worked, since Idle Death Gamble is a non-lethal domain, Kashimo didn't even think of using a domain expansion, making us believe believes that he doesn't have one. However, when it comes to Sukuna, Malevolent Shrine is like a mixer grinder machine that continuously uses cleave and dismantle that defeated Mahoraga in chapter 119. There is a high chance that Sukuna could use a similar attack to defeat Hakari even with his immortality. And not to ignore the fact that Sukuna may very well be able to override Hakari's domain expansion with his own, since he is a special grade cursed spirit after all. I think this is where Hakari's bonus stack of jackpots may come in handy. And storing abilities is something that reminds us of Yuta, who is also a mighty force by himself. He single-handedly defeated 3 super powerful enemies in previous chapters and even used Rika's power. There is no doubt that Yuta is insanely strong with his copying technique, reverse cursed energy, and Rika being an arsenal of techniques. But just like he said, Hakari is definitely stronger than Yuta. For one, in chapter 140, Yuta said that even though he has more cursed energy reserves than Gojo, he expends it at a much higher rate than him. This might be a fatal factor in Yuta's showdown against Hakari. Just like Gojo, Hakari also has infinite cursed energy once he hits a jackpot, which will only add to Hakari having a cursed energy trait as well. Furthermore, Yuta uses reversed curse technique consciously whilst Hakari runs in it automatically. According to Kashimo, there's a major difference between these two modes. A sorcerer running on automatic reverse curse technique doesn't face as much trouble against even poison, whereas a manual reverse curse technique user might have a tough time. This difference might also lead to Yuta's defeat. A very cool thing to note here is that Hakari's character also has many patterns similar to that of Gojo. Even their domains are a bit similar in the manner that their opponents are left to simply observe and understand their power and can't attack Hakari and Gojo at all. In fact, Hakari might be the closest to Gojo in terms of battle prowess, however he lacks this strategic mind Gojo has developed with experience and understanding. There is also the fact that he doesn't have them goddamn beautiful, sexy, gorgeous, alluring, dazzling, pretty, fascinating, delicate
Rain Child Zeke Jr. I get it!
Oh come on, we all simp for Gojo in this community and always will. Don't lie. Search your feelings, you know it to be true. Anyway, Hakari also needs some counter-offensive technique that is more than simply punches to go up against Gojo. That being said, we can definitely see how Hakari can someday be just as strong as him. In essence, Hakari is also a small part of Gojo's personality itself. He depicts the invincible and seemingly immortal being Gojo is, and also someone who is hungry for battle. It's no question that Gojo also enjoys fighting and can also be very aggressive during them. Similarly, Hakari also loves battle, and we also see him literally bust a nut because of his abilities. He seems to be having fun in his fight against Kashimo, even if he almost died a couple of times. It's just no big deal. Just like Gojo in chapter 75, Hakari also loses himself in the heat of battle. These panels in chapter 189 are a very vivid reminder of chapter 75. The atmosphere of these scenes, Kashimo and Toji's observational mood, and the air of realizing the powers of the opponent are all the same. And all this whilst Hakari and Gojo are upside down, simply enjoying the battle. Akutami sure does love those parallels.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Now, is this a foreshadowing of the fact that Hakari is the next Gojo? He surely is in line with Gojo's dream of creating a ninjutsu society, as Hakari hates the higher-ups almost as much as Gojo. It's easy to see why Hakari's eccentric personality might have earned disapproval from the big shots. Moreover, Hakari even professes his love for fighting as a fever in chapter 155. This chapter is actually a character-defining one for Hakari because he lays his philosophy bare and it applies to his jujutsu. Hakari believes that everyone in life gambles on something or the other. This is the fever of trying to change things in some way, but the true manner of dealing with this fever is by gambling. He thinks that society tramples on people who can't bet big enough, meaning people who can't take chances, which is quite true. It is a simple logic that if you don't bet anything of value, you will never change or progress in life. On the other hand, society also hates people who don't know when to stop. Just like taking a bit of risk is necessary, knowing knowing one's limits is also crucial to not lose it all. As a sorcerer, Hakari literally gambles his life with his domain expansion to achieve greater power. Even the name of his domain expansion hints at the fact that as long as he keeps betting on his life within limits, there's nothing that can stop him. Once again, this is also something that we can find in Gojo. He has always waged everything against his students, even his status in the Jujutsu Society and his position as the strongest, all to foster them into strong sorcerers. He believes his students can change society, and he is willing to take the risk underlying this. It's like Megumi said, someone you save might end up killing someone else. It's an inherent risk you must be prepared to take. Hakari's ideology also applies to Jujutsu sorcerers in general. They bet their lives to take down cursed spirits in the hopes of creating a better society by eradicating evil. Jujutsu itself is a gamble because your actions may or may not have an impact on the overall system, but Jujutsu sorcerers are merely a cog functioning to fulfill their purpose, as Itadori believes. The fever and the role of a sorcerer are dichotomous for sure, but they are not mutually exclusive, as Itadori shows Hakari in chapter 157. His fight against Kashimo is a clash of contrasting characters, an ancient sorcerer against a modern sorcerer with their techniques reflecting it as well. But they are also opposite, that Kashimo is a highly offensive player who constantly wants to attack. Even more than Sukuna, I think Hakari himself was the enemy Kashimo was destined to meet and fight to push him to the limit of his potential. Well, that's as long as he gets to keep his fight club running, even though he might not admit it, but his fever is the hottest when he's fighting for the Jujutsu school, as Kirara said. He will play a very crucial role in taking down Kenjaku alongside Yuta, who was vowed to do so in chapter 174. And so, you should go watch our video power scaling Yuta in a similar way, explaining all of his powers and philosophy linked to Satoru freaking Gojo right here.